Today, in the classroom, I'm going to open your world up in Spanish, and you're going to be able to take this lesson today as far as you want to take it. And you can be as ambitious as you want to be. Because what we're going to learn today is AR verbs. Now, you might be saying, okay, what is an AR verb? It's really easy. It's a verb that ends with the letters AR. Now, in Spanish, there are three types of verbs. There are AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. And that's it. Today, we're doing AR verbs to start out understanding how we do verbs in Spanish. And the thing about AR verbs is this. We're going to use a pattern today. Now, this pattern can be applied to all regular AR verbs in the Spanish language. And the fun part is, all you have to remember is the verb itself. You don't have to memorize all the various forms because you can just apply the pattern to it. So, as many verbs as you learn in Spanish, you already know how to conjugate them. So what we're going to do today, we're going to start out by drawing a chart, and we're going to put those pronouns that we did a few episodes ago in the very beginning. We're going to put those pronouns on there just to use as a visual. I know you've probably already learned them, but let's put them on a chart just to use as a visual. So, remember up here we have yo, and then here we have tú, and then down here we learned él, ella, and usted. Those were our singular pronouns. Now over here we learned our plurals, nosotros, and we learned vosotros, and we learned ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Okay. Now in Spanish, you're going to find that what we're talking about today is a lot like we talked about with estar and ser before. When we have an AR verb in Spanish, I'll give you an example like hablar. Hablar means to speak. Okay, what you need to understand about AR verbs is this. The AR at the end of this verb makes it an AR verb, but more than that, the AR means to do that. So, hablar means to speak. It doesn't mean speaking or spoke or speaks or speak. It means to speak, literally means to speak. So, as you can guess, there's our problem. We can't say yo hablar. Like we talked about a few episodes ago when we said we can't say yo ser, I to be. That doesn't make sense. So, same thing here. We're going to have to do something with this verb to make it fit with these pronouns. We can't say yo hablar, so we're going to have to change it. Now, think about this, that we do this in English all the time. Okay? So just try to connect it to what you do every day in your conversations. If we say, she speaks, we take the word to speak and we make some changes to it. We take off the word to and we add an S to it, and now it's she speaks. And now it sounds right. We're going to do the same thing in Spanish. All we got to do is make a few changes. So that brings me to today's lesson. How do we make those changes? Well, you guessed it, I'm going to draw a chart. So, right over here, let me draw a chart. And I hope you're starting to see that this chart is a really nice visual for it. And I hope you've been practicing so that you can be thinking about those different forms and conjugations. I promise you, you'll find it very helpful as you visit another country that speaks Spanish and you start trying to think of those words. Now, I'm about to open your world in Spanish up a whole lot. Watch this. In order to make these AR verbs work with those pronouns, all we have to do is two things. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the AR. That's the first step with any verb, any normal verb. Hablar is an AR verb. AR verbs, I'm going to take the AR off. Later on, we're going to learn ER verbs. I'm going to take off the ER. And later on, we're going to learn IR verbs. So you guessed it, we're going to take off the IR. That's the first step. Now, only take off the AR. Leave the rest of the word exactly like it is. Okay? So, we're going to take off that part of the word. Now, this first part of the word is going to be the foundation of all of the forms. So all we need to know now is we need to learn, like I like to tell my students, the magical endings. These endings are what we apply to the word now to make it work with the pronouns. Here are what I call the magical endings for AR verbs. The first one is O, just the letter O. It's really easy. And then we have as, which is AS. And then down here, we're going to learn A. So what you want to do is go ahead and start getting this in your mind. I'm going to mirror you. So if you put your left hand up and you kind of say O, as, A. O, as, A. It doesn't take you long to learn those sounds. O, as, A. Now on the right side, we're going to put 3 more. We're going to put up here in the top, amos. Remember the verb ser, somos. You can see a connection there. Okay? And then right here, we're going to put ais in that Spain form with AIS with that accent on the A. It's the only accent here. And then down here in the bottom, we're going to put an. Okay, so what I want you to do now is start practicing o, as, a, amos, ais, an. Over and over. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. And once you get those down, start doing them out of order. Think to yourself, what's over here in the left middle? As. What's down here in the bottom right? An. What's up here in the top right? Amos. What's over here? O. So get those down. Now start connecting this with me, with myself. Okay? And this with you. And this with he and she and the you formal. And this with the we, because we is up here. And this with you plural. And this with they and you plural also. Now, here's the easy part. We get to make that connection now. And this is where I open your world up a whole lot. So, if I want to say, I speak, for example, I speak Spanish, which I hope all of you can say very soon, all you have to do is, first of all, take off that AR, okay? And then you apply the ending. So, let me do an example for you. Yo, and we have the verb hablar. We always said that can't work, right? Because it means I to speak. That doesn't make sense. So let's go back. Our first step was to take off that AR. That leaves us with HABL. Now, all we have to do is apply the magical ending. And how do I know which ending to use? Watch this. Where is I on the chart over here? If you describe it, it's in the top left, right? Now, look over here at this chart. Which ending's in the top left? Oh, that's right. So that's the ending I put on the verb. So how do you say I speak in Spanish? You got it. Yo hablo. Now try to say I speak Spanish. Yo hablo español. And a quick reminder, we don't say H's in Spanish, right? It's there, it's written, but we're just going to ignore it, right? So yo hablo. All right, now I'm going to give you a couple to try on your own. Are you sitting there with your cuaderno and your pluma or your lápiz? I want you to try a couple on your own. How would I say she speaks Spanish? Okay, I'm going to do this right here just as a nice visual for you. Again, I'm going to start with the verb hablar. Doesn't work. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't say she to speak. So what's our step 1? You got it. Take off the AR. Now it's just HABL. Remember that HABL? That's the foundation for all of these forms. All of them. Okay? So ask yourself, where is ella on the chart over here? It's in the bottom left, right? Now, which ending over there is in the bottom left? The A, right. So we're going to put that on there. Ella habla. Now try to say she speaks Spanish. Ella habla español. Very good. And that's how we do AR verbs. Let's just try a couple here, just so we can start putting it in our minds and start making those connections. So if I want to say I speak, as we already said, it's yo hablo. If I want to say you speak, if I'm talking to someone that I know well in that informal way, how would I say you speak? Right. Take off the ending, put the AS on there. Tú hablas. Okay? And if we're asking a question, you can say, flip it and say hablas tú, or you can just say hablas. That's the fun thing about Spanish. You don't always have to say the pronouns like in English. We have to say you speak or do you speak. But in Spanish, you can just say hablas and it works just fine. Now, let's just go through the other ones. How do I say he speaks? Good. Él, and again, we take off the AR and we put that ending right over there. Él habla. Remember why we put él, ella, and usted in the same box? Because they use the same stuff. They use the same endings, the same verb conjugations. They use all the same stuff. So now if I see someone on a street in a Spanish-speaking country and maybe I'm not quite there yet in their language and I want to say, do you speak Spanish or do you speak English? But I wanted to show some respect. I can use the usted form. So how would I say that? Do you speak Spanish? Right. We're going to use usted, and we're going to take off the AR and put that ending in the bottom left. Usted habla español, or usted habla inglés, if you wanted to say, do you speak English? All right, now, let's look at our plural side and just make those connections. We speak. How would you say it? Think about it. You got it. Nosotros hablamos. We're going to put the A-M-O-S on there. Hablamos. Nosotros hablamos español. Now, if I were in Europe and I'm traveling Spain and I want to say you plural, do you all speak English or Spanish? I'm going to use this form. How would I say that? Vosotros habláis español? Or vosotros habláis inglés? Okay. Now, we're almost there. How would I say they speak English? Good. You can either say ellos or ellas, depending on if you're talking about just girls or a mixture or boys. You could say ellos hablan inglés or ellos hablan español. Now, again, here's a form that we can use anywhere we go that speaks Spanish. Do you, plural, do all of you speak Spanish? Try it. Ustedes hablan español? Very good. I think we're starting to make some connections. Now, here is the good part about Spanish. All we have to do now is learn some AR verbs. Any AR verb you learn in Spanish is going to be conjugated the same way using those endings. So if you learned o, as, a, amos, ais, an, you are halfway there. All you have to do now is learn the AR verb itself. Just remember that hablar means to speak. You got the rest, right? Because you know the endings. If you know hablar means to speak, you can say I speak, you speak, they speak, all by using your endings. So now you see what I mean by I'm going to open an entirely new world up to you today. Because all you have to do is learn AR verbs. And the more you learn, the more you can speak. Now, I want to encourage you right now. There's a book that I came across. It's called 501 AR Verbs. Now, if you're in a bookstore or go online and you see 501 AR verbs, or 501 verbs, and you can get them in all different languages, but they have them in Spanish, I have personally found this to be a very useful resource. But as you know, there are tons of resources on the internet. You can type with a simple few strokes, pull up an entirely new world of AR verbs. I'd like to show you now a list of just some AR verbs to get you started, and we're going to start using some other words and start making some sentences. Okay, now you have your endings down. Let's look at some new AR verbs. I want to give you something to get you started. Now, first of all, let's look up here. We learned hablar already, to speak. Now, let's apply that to some other languages. Let's put some language words up here. First of all, you already know español. You've heard us say español on the show already, but this is how you spell it. Notice that tilde on the N. It's called an ñ. And also English is inglés. There's an accent on that E right there, inglés. So, also another common language is francés, French. Another accent on the E. And here's another popular language, Alemán, German. So let's take the verb hablar for just a minute and let's let you practice it. How would you say, we speak Spanish? You got it. Nosotros hablamos español. Now, how would you say, they speak English? Ellos hablan inglés. Now, how would you say, she speaks French? Ella habla francés. You're getting it. And now, how would you say, I speak German? Yo hablo alemán. Very good. Now, let's look at another AR verb. Here's one for you. Escuchar means to listen. Escuchar, to listen. Also, there's estudiar. For all of you students out there, estudiar means to study. So right now, how would you say, we are studying Spanish? Nosotros estudiamos español. All you had to do was think, where is we on the chart? And then which ending's on the chart up there in that top right part of your brain? And there you go. You've conjugated the verb correctly. Now here's another one for all you working people. Trabajar means to work. Now here's a question word that you might find interesting. ¿Dónde? ¿Dónde means where. So how would I say, where do you work? ¿Dónde trabajas? Where do you work? ¿Dónde trabajas? Now, how would you say, I work? Yo trabajo. Good. Now, notice trabajar is 3 syllables. I'm going to give you a quick little syllable lesson in Spanish. When a Spanish word has 3 syllables, stress the middle one. If there's no accent there to tell you any differently, stress the middle. So, trabajo, I work. Trabajo. You're going to stress that middle syllable. A lot of my students like to say 3 syllables, stress the middleable. So one way to remember it, the middleable. Now, let's look at another word. Comprar means to buy. So how would you say, do you buy? ¿Tú compras? Or in a question, ¿compras tú? Now, here's one. Also, if you're out doing some shopping and you're buying something, you have to pay. So here's a good one for you. Pagar. Pagar means to pay. Okay, now here's a little extra shopping word for you right here. La caja. That means the cash register. So how would you say, we pay at the cash register? Pagamos en la caja. Very good. So what I want you to understand today is that learning these AR verbs is very, very simple. And also, all you have to do, as I said, is learn the word itself. When you take it a step further and you learn your endings, you're going to find that your world in Spanish has now been extended greatly. And you're ready. The more words you can learn, the more ready you are to have a conversation with somebody. So I encourage you to get out there, get online, get a book, and learn as many AR verbs as you can and start using them in conversation.